morning again. Great to see such a busy room. I know everyone's excited to hear this next session. Building high-speed rail in Canada. We're talking about global lessons on delivery, integration, and long-term success. So what can Canada learn from the world's most ambitious high-speed rail programs? This panel today brings together international experience, Canadian project leadership, and systems integration expertise to explore the lessons learned that matter most for Alto. Governance, delivery, digitalization, resilience, standards, skills, public confidence, and integration of design with long-term operations and maintenance. Moderating today's session and discussion is Laurence Lebel from Atkins Realis. Take it away. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Thank you, TRACCS, for having us today in this amazing session. So we have a shorter period of time assigned to us, so we'll go a bit more quickly through the slides and the content and reduce the number of questions, and hopefully we'll have enough time to go to you to ask your own questions. So hi again. I was on the previous panel, so I'm now switching hats, and I'll let you know about that right after. So Canada is really at a pivotal moment in the infrastructure world. And this is the reason for that is because we're moving forward with the first high-speed rail project in Canada. But the big question is, how do we get this right? So we'll be exploring that with our panel today, with expert colleagues, and investigating how we can master the complexity of such a large-scale project by getting it not only off the ground, but off to the finish line. So this project brings together international experts and Canadian program leadership, bridging lessons from around the globe with Canadian context and realities. So let's meet our panelists. We'll start with you, Priska.
Thank you. So Priska Flato, I'm a senior vice president at Sistra. So I'm also a member of the executive committee at Sistra. I worked for 17 years in the transportation mobilities and project. And I worked also on HS2 MWCC, UK high speed, but also in Asia, in Thailand, and in Malaysia to develop projects based on, I would say, the best standards. Today I'm looking at a major delivery program such as Alto to ensure that Alto has the right people and delivering in a timely manner.
And David?
Yeah, thank you, Laurence. So my name is David Alexander Cook. I'm a railway engineer by trade. I'm the vice president of systems and interfaces at Alto. I've been actually on the project since January 2020. So it's been a long time for me before Alto was even a thing. At that time, it was HFR. I'm glad we're here today. And before that, I spent about 15 years working at CN Rail on all sorts of railway construction, design, and maintenance projects. And I'd like to say, at Alto, we want to cut journey times in half, and we're going to cut the presentation time in half, because high speed is high speed.
There you have it. Very good transition there. And I'm Laurence Lebel, so I'm Deputy Director of Systems Engineering for Cadence with Atkins Realis. And really my world is systems integration. And that's really the lens I want to bring on that conversation, on our conversation today. So before we go into more details, I'll bring you up to speed with how Alto and Cadence collaborate together. So really think of Alto as the ultimate governance of the project. It holds overall accountability and high-level approval authority, as well as strategic oversight, ensuring that regulatory compliance and public interest are aligned throughout. Cadence is a group of international and Canadian companies bringing world-class expertise in large-scale transportation infrastructure projects. The group is composed of CDPQ Infra, Atkins Realis, Sistra Canada, Keolis Canada, SNCF Voyageurs, and Air Canada. So our role is to lead the procurement and bidding, technical execution, and manage ultimately the delivery and the day-to-day operations of this major project and system. So for decades, high-speed rail has been a discussion point in Canada, whether it be in the form of campaign wish lists or studies, yeah, a lot of studies, or an ongoing debate on how to reduce congestion. And eventually, each discussion was shelved. But in February 19, 2025, that all changed as the government of Canada announced the first high-speed rail project, Alto, connecting Toronto to Quebec City with 5 stops over roughly 1,000 kilometers of double track. And then Canada wouldn't be the only G7 country without high-speed rail. So when we talk about Alto, we talk about bringing service to Canadians on par with European standards. It means having trains run at 300 kilometers an hour on dedicated electrified tracks for high-speed rail. It means fast. Toronto-Ottawa, 2 hours. Toronto-Montreal, 3 hours. It means reliable, no freight conflict, no yielding of way, trains running on time, good Wi-Fi, I added this, frequent, regular departures, so you travel when you want to, not when the schedules allow for it. And we won't talk about only the benefits, but we want to get to the big question and the big question isn't about the speed. It's not about where the system will run. It's not about what technologies we'll be deploying, because it's something we're pretty close to knowing, right? But it's how to build the resilience in our system from day one. And before we put a shovel in the ground, the greatest challenge is the same as any other rail transit system. It's how to do good systems integration, ensuring that every piece of the puzzle fits nicely with everything. So the infrastructure, the systems, every interfaces that work as one. So we're currently in the development and pre-construction phase of the project, so identified as item 2 here. And arguably, this is where the most critical decisions about the project will be made. And this is the reason why lessons from international projects in other jurisdictions are so valuable. So we're not starting from scratch on this project, but we need to be including intelligently lessons learned from other jurisdictions to our Canadian context. And for this, we'll have Priska present to us what you've seen on previous projects.
Thank you, Laurence. So actually, the lesson learned that I would share with you are coming also from real projects. It's not a theory today. Sistra has worked for 65 years in a transportation project and has contributed to half of the world's high-speed line. So today, in terms of, I would say, project live for Sistra in high-speed perimeters, we work in the UK, we work, of course, in France, we work in Australia, in the UAE, in Sweden, in Canada, in the US, Portugal, and Morocco. So actually, all the projects are different. Each of them are very, very different. Different geopolitical, I would say, standpoint, different politics, different market consideration, different rule also, different contract framework. But the same questions occurs during the delivery is how to organize decision making, very important. How to manage interfaces, you talked a little bit about it. How to design for the long term in terms of operation and maintenance. How to embed climate resilience, it's something which is extremely important for Canada. And to maintain, and I think it's one of the main risks for projects, which is a long-term project, it's the confidence. Confidence of the public, but also confidence of the politics. So 5 key lessons learned that matters most: governance and alignment, integration, operation and maintenance, climate resilience, and confidence. So it's not secondary topic, it's not transversal one that will take care at the end. It's really the foundation and the backbone for success. So most of the delays or overruns that we can see on project happen when one of those topics is addressed too late, and then after we run to overcome all of that. Yes. So high-speed line is a system of systems. It's a very complex project, of course. You have civil work, rail systems, we talk about it, but also power, signaling, station and depot, operation and maintenance, interfaces with existing stakeholders and existing network, the bus and intermodality in terms of transport, but also stakeholders, regulators and community. So from start, you need to have a coherent system that works together to deliver the project. So governance is the first delivery tool, and governance is not only what we can see as administrative stuff, but more something which will be the backbone of your project. So governance means who decides, who is accountable, how conflicts are resolved, and how the program stays aligned under pressure. And pressure, we're gonna have some. So strong governance means faster decision making, better accountability, better interface control, but also a greater investor confidence. So I just want to give you a few examples of, I would say, good alignment in terms of governance, and I would say weaker alignment. So in France, we are used to work on a PPP project, PPP model, for high speed for Bretagne Pays de Loire, for those who knows, Nîmes-Montpellier and Tours-Bordeaux, SEA, where actually we have a clear responsibility and allocation of risk and responsibilities with the incentive structure. So it's help to support cost control and on-time delivery. So to give you an example on SEA, the penalties for each days of delays to entry into revenue services was 100,000 euros. So very strong alignment between contractual incentive and delivery disciplines. At the reverse, we have Perpignan-Figueras, shows that what happened when the alignment is weaker. So actually the line opened in 2009 and the Spanish connections to go to Barcelona came only in 2013. So actually very low traffic the first year, financial stress, of course, and failure of the concession. So governance is especially critical on cross-border, and I think it's quite the same in Canada. You have a province, federal, and so on. And multi-stakeholder standpoint is also to have the point of view of all the stakeholders is extremely important. We talked about integration, but as I said, the high speed is a system of systems, so you need to connect civil with systems, you need to connect infrastructure with the rolling stock, the station with the local mobility, the DSM team and the contractor, the operator and the engineering teams, and finally the digital model and the real world. So that is something which is a bit our specialty in Sistra. We are working on both sides, so on infrastructure, system, stakeholder management, and so on. I'll give you an example which is not really a high-speed line because it's a metro of Dubai that we are designing right now, where actually Sistra is not only designing the civil work and the system, but also making sure the integration is done at a good level, not only between civil and system, but also with the operators, the maintenance, and so on. So we have tools also to help us in terms of integration. Design reliability is something which is extremely important. And so the BIM and the digital, I think there is another roundtable about it, is very important to better coordinate the design and all the stakeholders in the project. Something which is, I think, very important also is when we design, we are not designing to build. We are designing to operate and maintain. It's a project that will live for decades. It's not for us. It's ours for the next generation in Canada. And the biggest mistake, I think, is to treat operation and maintenance as a next phase or after the construction has started. So early design choice needs to determine maintenance success, asset reliability, life cycle cost, of course, operational readiness, and handover success. Again, an example in France, so with Mesea, so I talk about Southeast Atlantic, Bordeaux-Toulouse. So Sistra is involved of 30% of operational maintenance on this Tour Bordeaux via the Mesea joint venture. So 50 years of commitment, giving direct feedback from real operation into design and maintenance thinking. So what we need to ask ourselves when we design a high-speed line is, can this be built, but not only? Can this be operated and maintained for the next, I would say, 50, 100 years? Resilience as well. Resilience, I think you heard about the huge floods in Dubai a few years back, I think it was 2 years back, where actually all the transportation system has stopped during a few days. And Dubai has reacted immediately. So today we are designing the Blue Line, and all the standards have been revised to embed the requirements of the float into the design. So day one, we had all the specifications to implement a project which is much more resilient than the previous one, able to operate even though we have I would say, a climate event in the city. Very important to embed that into in the design at the first day. And to finish with, and I think it's something which is extremely important, is the confidence. And confidence is not just making an announcement and just saying, okay, guys, we are going to do a high-speed line, and that will save a lot of time for you to go from a city to another. But it's something to be entertained all along the project. It's not one-shot things. It needs to be continuous, and especially in those projects that are very long, we need to communicate with everybody. In Canada, it's the first time for a high-speed line, so there is a lot of questions, and those questions need to be replied in a timely manner all along the project. Okay, that's going to be faster, that's going to be more reliable, but what does that mean for the users? What does that mean for the people living in the different communities? So people need to feel what will be the real outcome of those projects. We have done that also, if I take some example, or European example, in a project like HS2, where actually, as a GV, we have also participated to the consent, what we call consent in the UK, to communicate to the different stakeholders, the users, the communities, what will change for them in the good way. And that has been done really not only during the construction, but also during the design, constructions, phases, etc., etc. It's bring transparency, engagement, and real value for the project. So it's not just, definitely not just an announcement. And I think that's it for me.
All right, thank you very much for sharing all those lessons with us and your experience on past projects, Priska. So now over to David, and maybe I'll leave you the clicker this time. Might be more simple for me.
Thank you.
Okay, to go over the global lessons that are being incorporated into the Alto project.
Yeah, so a project like Alto is obviously very large, right? It's over 1,000 kilometers of railway. That's 2,000 kilometers of track, and plus, of course, all the yards and facilities. So it's a very massive undertaking. And doing something that large requires a strong foundation, right? So it's you say incorporating the lessons. It's not just in what we build, but how we build it. What tools are we going to use? What are the requirements going to be on the infrastructure, but also on the operating technology, and on all the systems that will be in place to monitor the progress of the project, from design through to construction, through to operation, maintenance, and renewal, right? So those technical foundations, we need to get them right early, and that's challenging. You mentioned earlier kind of like a lot of the technology is known around the world, and we'll come back to that later, but adapting it to the Canadian conditions is going to pose its own challenge, and so that's what we're really trying to do at Alto. And so part of that, of course, is in the Canadian context, is those interfaces. And I'm going to talk mostly about external interfaces here. Of course, the internal interface part is extremely important as well, and how those systems are all going to work. Systems integration is something that, if a project does right, spells success for the project, meaning on time, on budget. Systems integration goes wrong, then you might have something like, you know, a crosstown project that doesn't go so well. So that's key. And those external interfaces are difficult to manage. In Canada, we value independence, not just municipal, provincial, federal independence, but also companies, right? The utility companies have a big say. They're big players in the market. We're going to interface with them everywhere. So we need to speak with them early, understand what the interface is, how it's going to be resolved, and then build confidence with that stakeholder in order to make sure that it's resolved correctly, both for them and for us. So the Canadian context is such that today we understand rail. Rail's fairly well understood. It's a known quantity. Here we come with high speed. So as soon as you say, oh, Bell, for example, may already have a standard on how they interface with regular rail, but they're going to want to look at the risk factors when it comes to high speed. So those are the kinds of things in relationship building we need to do for proper interface management. Thinking beyond construction, so Priska mentioned that. For sure, the operations maintenance phase is going to be critical, and that's the challenge right now. It's easy, or easier, to think of Alto as a large construction project, because fundamentally it is. We're going to be moving, you know, millions of cubic meters of dirt. It's a huge earth-moving project, and that requires its own setup, its own thinking and planning. But at the end of the day, Alto is going to be a railway company, right? We're going to have an operator. So we have to start thinking about what is it? What does it mean to be a railway, right? So you're building the base of the systems, the physical infrastructure, but you got to build your other infrastructure, and that can mean there's a huge people component to it. And we were talking about that before, right? The skill sets out in the open right now are kind of locked into the, you know, the few railway operators we have in Canada, and here we come with a new railway operator. So we're actually going to rely on those other railway operators to help us as well. So that's a key partnership. And that speaks to adapting to that really Canadian condition, right? We can talk climate, we can talk geography. Those are things we know in Canada, and for sure, adapting technologies from Europe or Asia to the Canadian context is going to be its own challenge for sure. And we have experts working on that, and we're really working on it. I don't know if many people know, but Alto is a member of UIC, l'Union Internationale des Chemins de Fer, and we're working with them actively on research partnerships and programs. We're working with the National Research Council here in Canada. Laurence, you're leading a lot of research initiatives through your work with academia. And so we're really bringing everybody together to make this happen. So, but the Canadian condition isn't just that, it's also the workforce, it's also the culture, it's many things. And I'm going to say one last thing, actually not one last thing, we'll come back to it many times, but winter poses its own problems, not in terms of technology, but in terms of scheduling, right? And we've all been there, many people here in the room have worked on large railway projects. If you were meant to start in April and end before winter, and you end up starting in June or August or September and need to end before winter, that creates all sorts of challenges. It's difficult when you're doing a 5-mile siding extension, now imagine that 1,000-kilometer railway, where so many of those internal and external interfaces depend on that one contractor finishing on time before winter so that the next contract can start. And that speaks to my last point, the public dialogue and social acceptability. The public is a huge stakeholder here. They're our future clientele. They need to believe in the project, both at a fundamental level, but also to support the project when it comes to meaningful support in the sense of resolving those external faces. So if we go and speak with the community and we say, hey, we're going to pass by your community, and there's not going to be a station, that's the majority of the communities. How do we resolve that? how do we get the public in that community to accept Alto coming because it benefits all, but in the very short term, there's going to be very immediate impacts for that community. And that's tough to manage. Okay. So, and Alto also is coming with a kind of a bit of a different infrastructure, right? So railways, there we go. I didn't have my safety harness on. So Alto's a bit of a different railway, right? External interfaces are going to be very limited in the sense of meaningful interfaces. So it's a fairly wide right-of-way. The slopes, for slope stability issues, have to be wider. We need good drainage. Many railways today have drainage that's been kind of grandfathered in. It's not by any kind of standards that's applicable today for construction. We have to build that in. For maintenance, and we talk about maintenance and operations, we need an access road on the side, right? So railways today get managed and maintained inspection. You put a high rail on the tracks. You know, you go do your inspection, you go do your maintenance. High-speed rail, you get a 4-hour window at night. That's it. So it requires more maintenance crews, more inspection crews. It's going to require automated maintenance and an access road. So a lot of the infrastructure has to be accessible in order to intervene and potentially also in emergency situations. We're going to have more viaducts because there can be no level crossings, right? So 0 level crossings, no car rail interface. We cannot afford to have a train hit a car, so safety is critical. We're going to cross water courses, a huge environmental component there, obviously. Wildlife crossings, right? So we need a fence, high security fencing across the entire railway, so deers, moose, and other wildlife can't make it across, but they're going to want to, and they're going to need to, right? So we're going to have to make passage for them. Stations, only a few stations on the corridor right now. We have 7 stations currently on the corridor. So those need to be well positioned. People need to be able to get there. They need to be able to get there by car, by public transit, by mobility, active mobility, right? And we're also actually looking at tunnels. I think many people who were in the public consultations, especially in the Montreal area, have heard that we're going to downtown Montreal in a tunnel. There's really no other way to get there. It creates certain risks. Tunneling is risky. Montreal knows tunnels well, so that's good. But it removes a lot of risks, actually quite a few more, right? So those interfaces in a heavily dense urban area are a nightmare to deal with. So when you're underground, you avoid most of them, and that simplifies your life. So maybe you pay a bit more upfront, but you get more cost certainty, you get more schedule certainty, and certainty speaks to confidence. So just very quickly, you know, on the kind of various different components in winterization. So there's many aspects of winter operations that we are going to need to look at, and winter maintenance. So snow removal is one thing. Many railways today don't do a lot of snow removals. The rolling stock itself moves the snow. High speed goes quite a bit faster, so we're going to need snow removal solutions. Snow removal also not just on the right-of-way, on the access roads, but on the rolling stock as well. So de-icing. We're adding a catenary, right? So we do have a few catenaries here in Canada, and some of them have had problems in winter. We know that. So we can't afford to have that problem here on Alto. It's one thing to be stuck on the REM, you know, for a few hours in a big snowstorm. It's going to happen. It's unfortunate. It's quite another if you're stuck out near Havelock, for example, on a track of high-speed rail and the train can't work. So the catenary has to be free of ice. It has to be fully operational at all times. So those are some very real challenges. I'm not going to go through the whole slide. I think maybe people here can understand and appreciate the challenges that Alto faces when it comes to winter operations. And we're going to need the help from the suppliers and from the experts in Canada to resolve them. We've got good avenues of solutions. There are best practices out in the world that we're going to import to Canada, but then we have to adapt them for the Canadian market and for Alto specifically.
Thank you so much, David, for this presentation and also for the call to action to our group here in the room. So we'll go very quickly in questions, and we'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. So we'll go one per person, and hopefully we'll have enough time, 5 minutes, to open up for questions in the room. So Priska, What do the strongest international programs tend to get right in the early stages before construction starts?
So actually, I think just to come back on Alto, what David said, you are in a, I would say, the moment in this project where you can really do the things right. So build the foundation early is what you can do right now, and I think it's very important to mention that. You are all in the room, part of it, and when I say confidence and engagement of people all along the journey, I think it's really start now, and maybe that's why there is that much of people in the room, but I think when it comes to build a project of that complexity on a very long term, you have to have a very clear governance. You need to think beyond constructions, so operation and maintenance, embed resilience and climate resilience from day one. And once again, but I think it's what is important here in those kind of projects, is to maintain the public confidence throughout the journey. It's not only the public and the users, but it's all the stakeholders, the supply chain in the room, the users, and the politicians.
Thank you so much. And David, you spoke about winter quite a bit earlier, but there's all 4 seasons. So what climate resilience lessons are becoming most important for HSR programs globally?
So I think the first part when it comes to climate and climate change, climate resiliency is understanding what do we want for our railway, right? So in the European standards, there's T1, T2, TX. Those are the temperature ranges at which rail operates. So we need to determine that. And there's a risk-based analysis there and a cost-based analysis, right? So things you don't do up front. So for example, if you specify too low of a temperature range, you're going to lower your CapEx, but then in operations, you're going to pay more in operations when those conditions are surpassed. So if we go from -30 to +40, it's all good, but then on those it's -30, the system may be less resilient. So identifying that at the offset will be really critical. And then it's just how do we downplay that into all the various components. I think drainage is going to be a big issue as well, so it's not just a question of winter. Rail expansion, thermal expansion on the components will be huge. Obviously, we're going at 320 kilometers an hour. The wheel-rail interface is different. The very nature of the materials in the rail and which rail are we going to use, right? So in North America, we're very used to a RIMA spec rail. It's slightly different than European or UIC spec rail. There's a question of, are we going to be interoperable with other railways? Even in short sections, it poses huge integration challenges. So that climate resiliency part actually fats into all sorts of other factors that affect the design, the construction, and the operations of the future railway. So we're trying to identify all of them, and I think we've done a good job, but we have to keep working with our partners to say, is this correct? Did we miss something, right? We got to get it right.
Absolutely. That's probably something that Amir in the room is smiling at. Okay, so to close the session, if you could leave this audience with one lesson for Canada as Alto develops, what would it be? And then we'll open for questions.
So for me, is I want people to be optimistic. I want people to believe in this project. We can do this. There's no reason why Canada cannot deliver a high-speed rail. And when we did the consultations back in the winter, and it was one of the largest consultation campaigns in Canadian history, we heard some skepticism, and I think rightly so. I think it's okay to question, hey, are we ready? Can we do this? And my answer is absolutely we can do this. There's been a couple notable setbacks on some large infrastructure projects recently. We can think of a few. We can learn from those. We can do better, and we can, as Canadians, we can only not deliver only just a high-speed rail project, but high-speed rail expertise for the North American market, which has its own value, and that's extremely exciting. So I think we really need to believe in this, and then we together can get this done.
Absolutely. I agree so much with that. And Priska?
So I think I just spent 3 days with the team of Cadence, the team of Atkins, the team of Sistra, working together on this project. And I think you have the right setup right now to really push this project with a multicultural team, integrating international experts from Europe, but also local resources to deliver this project. There is, I would say, I can feel the excitement of the team to deliver that. So yes, you can do it. Yes, we can do it all together. And once again, confidence is very important in that. We need to find solutions. Yes, we have challenges, but we are all engineers, so it's our patience to solve issues. So we'll do that also in Canada.
Yeah, passionate people is really what we have in the team, so really glad to be working with so many amazing people and looking forward to working with some of you in the room. All right, so let's head to questions. I don't know where. Is there maybe a clicker or? I think there's supposed to be a Slido thing. Let's do that. We'll take questions, so we'll bring a mic up front. So if you want to raise your hand up, and we'll bring one to you. Okay, so I see one hand there. Okay.
Hello, may I ask what type of guideline codes has been used for design of track and structures for this particular project? Thank you.
Sorry, I think we couldn't hear that very well.
Which type of guideline or design guideline or code has been used for track and structure?
Okay, very good question. Well, maybe I'll hand it to you, David.
So right now on the very technical side, there's a few things we know. We're going to be using standard gauge, right? Most of the standards we're going to be using are going to be the TSI standards from Europe. We're going to have to adapt some of those for the North American market. So we're going to look at the ARIMA standards. We're actually also going to draw upon CNCPKC standards in some cases. And we're working with the CSA. The CSA is interested in establishing a sort of Canadian baseline for codes of standards for railway, so hoping to tap into that expertise to kind of help define them. So it doesn't fully answer your question because we're still in the development of it, but internally we have a really good set of like where we want to head to. And then the question is just deciding which specific standards provides us the performance we're looking for.
Thank you. I think we still have time for one more question.
Hi. Tim Scrivener from GFT. I believe in this project, and I really want to see it be successful. We've seen in California, the high-speed rail in California really get bogged down in governmental administration. How do we prevent that from the provincial bodies in Quebec, Ontario, and federally from slowing things down for this project? Thanks.
Is that something you can answer?
Sure, I can answer that. So that's a good question. Right now we've got the full backing of the federal government, and they've been huge actually in helping us get the project forward. And I think many people may know that or may be aware that the original timeline for a co-development period, which we're in right now, was supposed to be about 6 to 8 years. And the government asked us publicly to do it in 4. So that's a tall order, so full support there. And they're helping us, the federal government's helping us unlock also support from the provinces. So right now we've got support from at the provincial level from both provinces, and they've set up internally to them a governance to help us, to help support the project. It doesn't mean that on some very particular topics there might not be some challenges. I think there will always be, but currently actually support is very, very strong, and it's strong across all levels of government. There's a few surveys that came out earlier this week that even across all political parties, the project is heavily supported, and we need to keep building that momentum, and we need to keep showing that we're credible and that we can do this, and also that we're there listening to people, to their concerns, and taking those into account as we move forward. So, but overall, it's been very positive.
Thank you very much. Well, this is the time we have today. If you want to ask more questions in one-on-one discussion, one-to-one discussions, Alto is at the booth 319, so you can continue the discussion. But I really want to thank you both for the discussion, the conversation today on how we'll make this project successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.